Hello, everyone. Hi. Hi, Regina and Michelle. Oh, I just need to unmute both of you there. Hello.
Try to figure out all the technical.
Yeah, and hello, welcome everyone to MUJI workshop this Saturday. It's very nice to see everyone here again. And today we are doing a very special workshop to celebrate Valentine's Day with Regina and Michelle from Paragon Tea Room. And just at the very beginning, I do want to just kind of let everyone know that it's a very special collaboration, that MUJI is always trying to support a lot of local business. And then so I found out Paragon Tea Room in Vancouver, and they have really special hojija tea powder and green tea powder, like tons of different Japanese tea. And then it's really, really good. I try it and I found like, oh, like probably our customers in MUJI would like to know more about this brand. So then we were actually planning to do a community market before the winter outbreak. But then right now, because it's really not a good time to do those events out there, but then still we want to do something to support our local business and also bring something interesting to our customers. So anyway, so today we are going to introduce Paragon Tea Room and their products, and then also having Regina here because she's a very good food blogger, and then she's also really good at creating so many simple and nice recipes. So she'll be here to show us how to use the green tea powders from Paragon Tea Room to make Airy Nama Chocolate. So I will just give you another few heads up about how we are going to run this workshop, and just let everyone know that the workshop will be recorded, so you will find the video on our YouTube channel. We will send out the link to you after this, so you know where to find it. And during the entire presentation, if you have any questions, please ask them on Q&A box. Michelle and I will go over it, and then we will try to pass the questions to Regina. She'll be really busy, but then we want to make sure she can answer most of your questions. And just in case we don't get to answer your questions, they are going to answer your questions to your emails, because we get to know like who asked a question. If we are able to reach back to you, we will try to answer your questions through email after the workshop. And I'm going to share the recipe link as well in case some of you haven't get it yet. And that's everything from me. So then relax, and then I hope you have everything ready to follow along the workshop with Regina and Michelle. I'll pass it to you then.
Hi, everyone. I guess we'll start off with a bit of an introduction of each of us, and then we'll start the workshop immediately so everyone get to enjoy the process of making the chocolate with Regina. So my name is Michelle, and I'm one of the co-founders of Paragon Tea Room. We have a physical location on Cambie Street in Vancouver. For those who are from the East, probably haven't heard of us yet. We specialize in tea and tea latte with a really special tea espresso technology that we use to extract a really concentrated tea shot out of tea. So like an espresso shot, but 100% with tea, and that's how we turn into a tea latte. And that's how we make most of our tea latte at the shop. But when the pandemic hit, not a lot of people get to go out as often as before to get, to stop by and get a cup to go. And so we started exploring into introducing more stone milled pure tea powder. And when we talk about tea powder, it isn't just talking about matcha, because everyone know, matcha is a green powder that you get to make drinks. And turn it into a matcha latte, but there's actually a lot more options when it comes to tea powder. And so because we know that people really want to be able to make drinks at home in their own tea latte, in their own home cafe, or trying to create pastries at home, since the pandemic started. So we started introducing more tea powder into our online and offline shop. And so just want to quickly show you guys what we'll be using today. And if Amy can show our tea powder as the main screen, that will be
okay,
great.
I'm just gonna switch that to Spotlight, and then
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
So just a really quick heads up or like intro to a different kind of tea powder. Sorry for the shadow. I'm trying to switch. So this one over here It's a baking matcha powder that we have, and we always encourage people who are using a lot of matcha to, bake cake, cookies, or any dessert to maybe stick with baking matcha, just because it's quite economical. It's still very nice, vibrantly green, and has a great matcha flavor. And the second row of powder you see here, it's also green, but you can see that the shade of the green is very different from the baking matcha. This is what we call the ceremonial green matcha. And this is also what Regina have tried making the chocolate with, because we found out that when it comes to making matcha, the higher matcha grade, it's actually the better in terms of result. But when it comes to other baking product, the baking matcha is probably good enough. And then the third row over here, it's a very special powder called genmaicha powder. So genmaicha is a roasted Japanese green tea with genmaicha is a Japanese green tea with roasted brown rice. So it has a really special ricey cereal almost type of aroma and taste profile to it. And so you can see that it's also green, but it's a different shade of greens again. Not as vibrant and has a little bit of like a yellowish tone to it. The last one here is hojicha powder. And this is just one of the 4 hojicha powders that we carry, because Paragon is probably more known for the hojicha. A lot of people like our hojicha latte. And so we have like 4 different varieties of hojicha. This is called hojicha bronze. And that's a roastiest type of hojicha that we carry here. And because of that roastiness and bold flavor profile, it makes it really good for making baking like tea-infused baked goods. And keep in mind that all these powders are good for latte as well. So if you want to make any tea latte at home, they're really simple to use. And so for the purpose of the introduction today, I think we're going to use the bronze powder, hojicha bronze, to make the Airy Nama Chocolate. And that's pretty much the little like 2-3 minutes intro of the popular tea powder that we carry here that we'll be using to make the Airy Nama Chocolate today. So I'm going to pass the time back to Regina, who will actually be running the most of the workshop today. I'm just a little helper. I know my tea, but I absolutely can't bake, and everyone who know me know that I don't know how to bake. Okay, I'm going to try this out.
Okay, so
Amy, if you can move or switch the camera to facing Regina, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes. So hi guys. My name is Regina, and I am a food blogger and recipe creator based in Vancouver. I own the blog called Vancouver Pick Out, and I started the blog back in 2017. And recently during pandemic, I started to develop more recipes and hoping that everyone can enjoy baking. And because with like back in March and April, there is a shortage of flour or like very yeast or like very accessible ingredients. I try to make the recipe as simple as it could be, and ingredients can be found in local or like nearby supermarkets, or just find by opening our home kitchen, and then we can just start baking. And today we are going to make Airy Nama Chocolate. Instead of making all 3 flavors, we are going to feature one specific flavor, which what Michelle introduced is hojicha bronze. And I'm just going to quickly tell you guys what tools are we going to use today and what ingredients are we going to use today. And Amy, do you want to switch to the
ingredient screen?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so for the ingredients, very simple. There are only 3 ingredients. There is the white chocolate chip. I chose white chocolate chip. It's because it's easier. You don't have to chop or anything. You can also use like a higher end chocolate, because it's definitely a chocolate dish. You can go for like a branded one, or you can go for these chocolate bars. Baker's is a good, and like the price point is quite reasonable. And these ones are chocolate bar, and they're super easy to melt. It's almost like a foolproof recipe. And there will be the hojicha powder.
Hojicha powder.
The hojicha powder. And there will be a whipping cream. Yeah, and there will be whipping cream. And these are the 3 ingredients that you will need to make Airy Nama chocolate. In terms of, because it's 3 ingredients, and obviously the preparation will be so shorter, it will take only less than 15 minutes for you to prepare this last minute Valentine's Day present. Or if you want, you can even make it yourself and make a treat for your next afternoon tea or like your next virtual friend's date. So I'm just going to quickly talk about the tools that we're going to use today. First of all is spatula. So you would need a stainless steel bowl that is heat resistant, because for some glass bowl, it might crack when you put on top of a hot water bath. But I recommend using these stainless steel one. And this one specifically is from MUJI. And they are better because they have a flat bottom. Not sure if you can see this, but they have a flat bottom. So then it has the surface of touching hot water will be more even. We will be using a spatula. These silicone spatula, it's better than wooden spatula because it doesn't stick as much. And a whisk. If you don't have, I prefer a hand mixer, but then if you don't have it, we can go for a whisk as well. It just takes more energy. So which means you can put more love and care into your chocolate and more, and energy. A spatula, like these metal spatula, a fine sieve, and you will also need a piping bag. So I use this 1M open star tip from Wilton. But then if you don't have a piping tip, you can also just cut a hole like here. So it'll make it very simple to pipe later. So you can use a piping bag with just no tip, or you can use for a nicer decoration and you can just do this. So we're gonna start proceeding with the demonstration. So let's just see if we have any quick question before we start.
Yes, Regina, we have a few here.
Mm-hmm.
Can we use dark chocolate instead of white chocolate?
Okay, so dark chocolate, I actually tried using dark chocolate, and the reason of dark chocolate I didn't use it is because the tea powder, you want the tea powder to shine with, regardless if it's matcha or genmaicha or hojicha. White chocolate would be a better option because the tea powder is more on the, I would not say bitter, but it has a stronger flavor to it. So if you use dark chocolate, then it will fully cover the tea flavor. So then this recipe isn't too sweet, even though we use white chocolate. We're also using a large amount of powder to actually mask the white chocolate flavor.
Yeah. Technically, tea point of view, dark chocolate has a strong flavor that will compete with the tea flavor. So if you're only making the Airy Nama chocolate with like no additional flavor, you just want to make it into chocolate. Or if you are trying to say like use an infused coffee into it, maybe dark chocolate will work. But when it comes to tea, usually white chocolate is a better option for tea flavor to shine through a little bit more.
That makes sense. And I'll just take another question before you move on. So can you substitute the cream with non-dairy alternative?
The cream, it's more like a stabilizer because we will put it in the freezer. So then the whipping cream, there is not really a good substitute. I know that Earth's Own Barista, they created a new whipping cream, like the oat milk whipping cream. You can try playing around with it because the consistency before you enter the freezer is very important. So then this one is specifically for dairy whipping cream, but then there is an option just to try it out. As long as it can freeze and shape it properly, then it will be good. But non-dairy milk would not, like milk overall would not be an option, unfortunately.
Maybe coconut cream or coconut oil, because I know that some people, when they do like vegan chocolate, they would do coconut. Yes. But that will be for you guys to try at home in your home cafe and let us know if that works.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, let's move ahead and then we will answer more questions after this.
Okay, so in here, I'm not sure if everyone will have the recipe next to you guys, but in here there is 140 grams of white chocolate chip. And again, if you're planning to use chocolate bar like these ones here, the white chocolate bar, you will have to chop them very finely before entering this metal bowl because it will then melt easily and it will be more evenly. So on the side, you will need to boil a pot of water. What I usually do is I'm going to bring out a pan of hot water, which is with a wide opening.
Some people ask for measurement.
Sorry?
Measurement, like quantity of chocolates you need.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So again, here it will be 140 grams of white chocolate chip. And all you have to do is just put in the hot water. So this is a pre-boiled hot water. You want to remove the hot water from the heat. So then your chocolate will be melted perfectly. The reason a lot of people is scared of melting chocolate, it's because there will be a lot of like separation. The chocolate will be separated if there is a too high heat. So there are a few tips when melting chocolate. One is avoid using a microwave. So don't use a microwave to melt your chocolate, even though your recipe said to do so, because sometimes boiling hot water might be like a very hard work. But then I promise you this extra few minutes step, it will make your chocolate be better and more perfect. So then the next step is that you want to you boil a pot of water, you want to remove it from the heat. You don't want to melt your chocolate directly from like when you're boiling the water, because once the chocolate to be too high heat, then it will start separate. So in here, I use not sure if you can see this. Let me just move this up a little bit. Okay. So in here, I use a bigger pan and put like I guess 1 inch of hot water in here. So you don't want your water to be too full because otherwise the water will easily slip into the bowl. And all you have to do is to start, you can see it start melting already. So this step will take a little bit longer. That's why when you're using a white chocolate bar, you would want to cut it very finely before entering this bowl. So for chocolate chip, it will be easier. And chocolate chip, it's also a very like price-wise, it's quite reasonable. So I'm just gonna keep stirring. Okay. And I am okay to answer any question if you guys have while I'm melting this chocolate.
Okay, so someone asked if they want to make a double batch of today's quantity. So they just double all the ingredients?
Yes. So I tried this recipe in multiple attempts. You can half the chocolate, half the recipe. So each recipe, the quantity is around 9 to 12 pieces based on the chocolate size that you're making. If you're making a smaller size, then it will be more. But then the medium, like the standard size, it will be 9 to 12 piece. And yes, you can double it. Some people might even ask if you want to do different flavor. And this recipe can be substituted with different powder. Again, hojicha, genmaicha, and matcha. You can use it for like 1 tablespoon in recipe, and it's 1-to-1 ratio substitution. Okay. Sorry, this step is going to take a while because I really wanted to show you guys how this works. And you might think hot water might not be enough to melt the chocolate. It will be, especially when the stainless steel bowl is actually quite warm and hot, so it will just keep melting. Okay. So in here, you want to hold your bowl very sturdily because you don't want the water to enter. Once if any water enters to your chocolate mixture, then you will have to restart. You have to clean your bowl, dry your bowl, and then do it again. Because water is almost like an enemy of chocolate. Yeah, so once water enters, then it will be not as great. So you can see the chocolate is starting to melt in here. And you want to make sure that there is no more clumps. Like these are clumps, you can see. So you want to keep stirring inside the hot water bath. Because the water is now removed from heat, so there will be no more like overheating. You won't be scared of like leaving the bowl and leave somewhere else and came back, it will be all like separated. No, it won't be, even though you can just put in the milk, like hot chocolate, like hot water bowl bath, and it will be continue melting.
Regina, I got a question here.
Yep.
Instead of what you're doing now, like you're having a smaller bowl within the bigger bowl, right? Can we also use double boiler?
Yes, you can. So I don't have a bigger bowl than this. This is like the biggest bowl I have. That's why I use a bigger pan to kind of show you guys. But then, yes, you can use a double boiler. But then one problem with double boiler is that you have to be careful. The bowl might be moving around because the small bowl might not be perfectly fitting the big bowl and it's not flat. So you need to hold your bowl very sturdily to prevent the water going in. But yes, and you can use double boiler. This is exactly what double boiler is in a more home kitchen way, I guess.
Yeah, anything you can find at home.
Yes, basically I'm just using whatever I can find at home. So now you can see that this chocolate is fully melted. You can see it's kind of glossy and it's very runny. So your hot chocolate, like your chocolate can be going through like this. This is the texture what we want, okay? So moving on to next step, you want to leave it here. We can remove it or we can leave it here. And we will going to use a hojicha bronze today. And we'll need 1 tablespoon. Okay. So I'm just gonna use 1 tablespoon. Oh, whoopsie. Well, I guess there's more hojicha flavor into the hot chocolate. So. And you want to use a sieve because you want to make sure that the powder is fine enough for the chocolate to melt. Like it's melting within the chocolate. You don't want to, when you eat the chocolate, you don't want to have like
clumps of tea.
Exactly. So I'm just gonna go through the sieve very quickly.
I know someone asked about how to create piping tip without the actual tip at home.
Okay, that's a good question. I would recommend buying a tip because the tip itself, it's only $1 to $2. It's not too expensive. You don't have to buy in batch. So if you want to, there are multiple YouTube videos that teach you how to cut your piping bag in a certain way. But then I feel like it also depends on the texture and the consistency of the mixture, because if the mixture is not hard enough, then it might actually go through the piping bag like easily. Like once you cut it, it will become more fragile. So I would recommend using a piping tip or just not use a tip at all.
Yeah, usually just it depends on what shape you want your final product to be.
Exactly. So now you can see at the beginning it might be hard to fold in. It will become like a doughy texture like this. But then once you continue to fold, then it will become back into a chocolate texture. Like the texture that you're looking for just now is glossy and it's runny.
Someone just asked a question about the beginning temperature of the hot water.
You can just boil it to like 100. It doesn't matter of the hot water as long, like the temperature, as long as you boil it and you remove it from the heat, and then once you remove it from the heat, then the water will start to cool down. So there is no specific temperature. And that's good about this recipe is because not a lot of people have thermometer at home. So I try not to go for like choosing a specific, you need 63 degree. And I feel like it's really hard I would actually avoid those recipes. But for this double boiler is the good thing. You just boil a pot of water and it will
start using it pretty right away kind of thing.
So the key here is you have to remove it from the heat. You have to turn off the fire. Yeah. So now you can just see you want to make sure all the match up like all the powder here. It's inside the bowl. So I usually just scrape it like this on the side and then just put it back in. So now it's all mixed. You can see.
I can smell the hojicha already.
Yeah, it smells really good. And some of you might think, oh, 1 tablespoon, it's a lot. But then this is the best amount that I feel like it will actually make the hojicha flavor shine. Anything less than that, you will just basically eating white chocolate. Yes, exactly. So there you go. And the reason I'm still putting in a hot water bath is because my house is really, really cold. So then I want to make sure that the chocolate remain in the same consistency I want. But in the summer, you can actually remove it from the water bath and start just putting in the powder. Okay, so now it's become, you can see this texture is still runny and it's also still glossy. Okay, now we're gonna proceed with the next step.
You want me to remove
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Just be careful.
And just
Yeah, you can just put it here. We don't need it anymore.
okay.
Okay, so the next step I'm going to I'm gonna show you how to boil the whipping cream. So I'm just gonna do this. I don't have a portable stove, so bear with me here.
How much whipping cream is this?
So in here, it will be 70-gram whipping cream. And it's just cold whipping cream from the fridge. And you just pour it into a little saucepan. Try to go for a smallest one that you can find in here because this step is going to be quick and you don't want to leave your attention to this saucepan. So it will be like, promise you, it will be 20 seconds, it will be done, this step. So you want to stand aside on your stove and monitor and stare at your whipping cream. Exactly.
Low heat, right?
It will be in high heat.
Oh, high heat. Okay,
yes.
Sorry, see, I don't bake.
It will be in high heat. So you're gonna boil this whipping cream to high heat. That's why you have to keep stirring it. You don't have to stir it. You can just kind of move around your saucepan and just to make sure that it doesn't stick.
And boil up or?
No, so you're gonna boil until on the side, on the rim here, it start having bubble popping up. So we're not boiling the whipping cream. We're just kind of like steaming it and make sure it's hot because we're gonna put it back into the chocolate later on and put it into a mixture. So I'm just gonna step aside to my stove behind me and I'll be back in 20 seconds.
Okay, I have a tea question that I need to answer anyway. So someone asked about if they can just grind hojicha loosely into like a smaller pieces of powder form. Will it be the same as getting hojicha powder? So the answer is not quite, unfortunately, because the hojicha powder, usually like any tea powders, we're talking about like there's a specific mesh size and it's really fine. When the Japanese tea supplier process the tea leaves into a powder form, they use an actual stone milled. So they mill and also they milled in like low temperature to retain a lot of the properties of tea leaves into the powder form. So, I mean, it might be close, but it will definitely not be the same and it won't be as strong. So you might, if you do end up grinding hojicha tea leaves into somewhat of a powder form with like a magic bullet or whatnot, it might not quite be the same. And also it won't, if it's not too fine, you'll be able to taste the grainy texture, which is also maybe not what you prefer in a chocolate. Okay, back to Regina.
Yes, so I'm back. It was literally that quick. I won't be able to show you what it looks like on a stove, but again, it will be starting having steam and Michelle probably can smell how good the whipping cream is. And on the very side here, it will start to have little bubbles. Okay, so on top of that, you're gonna immediately pour it into this chocolate mixture. You can just pour everything at once. Some recipe online just said you have to separate it into 3-4 times. I feel like it's just too complicated and too troublesome. So I'm just gonna do that. But at this step, you're gonna be patient. This step is probably, it took the longest time compared to melting chocolate. So all you have to do is just to use your spatula. Okay, and then you can just stir it like this. You might want to ask, using whisk, would it be better? I tried and it's just very hard to wash later on. So because you might eat your whisk later, and I try to minimize washing. So using your spatula, and you can pour the whipping cream directly to your spatula. So then it will start melting the parts on the residue on the spatula as well. So it will just be, so it's gonna take some time for the hot for the whipping cream and the chocolate to be incorporated. Okay.
So what exactly, it's Airy Nama Chocolate. So it's not quite the same as actual Nama Chocolate, right?
Yes. So Airy Nama Chocolate, it's a new, one of my new favorite. And one of the main difference is that the chocolate is not as heavy or as dense as Nama Chocolate, because we are going to add an extra step to this chocolate by incorporating air. So that's why we would need the whisk or the hand mixer. So later on at the end, after 1 day of putting into the freezer, then the texture will become light, fluffier, and almost like an ice cream texture, but it's still chocolate. So just want to show you guys how I usually mix this. It's now still clumpy. They're clumpy. Yes, they're clumpy. So I usually go to the side of, push it to the side of the bowl, and then I just spread it like this. And don't worry, it won't ruin the texture or the mixture of the chocolate, because that's not the end. This is not the finished product. But doing this, it will help to smooth the chocolate clumps. Okay. And again, if you want to minimize this step, you can actually pour the whipping cream in multiple times, like 3-4 times. But I feel like that will actually affect the temperature of the whipping cream, especially when we're in the winter right now. So we have to keep boiling it, and will actually ruin the consistency of the whipping cream. So I just pour it all at once and just do this. Yes. Okay. Hopefully I am clear enough in terms of instruction, but if not, please let me know and I can just answer your question.
Yes, I've been monitoring the chat room and the Q&A. That's why I'm like in and out of the camera.
Yes. So this step might take the longest because you want to make sure that there are no clumps, and we're not going to run through a sieve because the consistency is slightly too thick to run through. And once you run through the sieve, you might actually end up losing 1/3 of the chocolate. So you want to keep all of the chocolate and all of the hojicha powder in here. So just keep doing this. And you can see the consistency is getting better, and it's getting back to the glossy texture. And that's exactly what you want. Okay. So now we're ready. So just do a final check. Once you do this, there is no more clumps, then we're good. Okay. And again, I would not recommend using a wooden spatula. Go for a silicone one. So then it's so much easier to wash, and you can just slide it onto the mixing bowl and then just do this. See, and it will be removed. Okay, so we're gonna use a spatula and just gonna scrape down all the chocolate. Make sure it's in the center. Because we are going to put in the freezer. Okay, so we're gonna leave on the side. Okay, use plastic wrap. Okay, so in here we will need a very long plastic wrap that can fully cover your bowl. Like this. And instead of covering the bowl, we're gonna push it down carefully so then it's touching the surface. One reason of this is because when you put in the freezer, you don't want the extra moisture to be incorporated with the chocolate, because as I mentioned, chocolate and water are enemies. So you don't want to do that. So make sure you just lightly touching this and then just kind of
push out the air
exactly
from the side of the bowl.
Yeah, exactly. So like this. Okay. And we're going to put this in the freezer for, okay, so this is the key here. if you're using a whisk, like a hand whisk like these, go for 30 minutes. Maximum freezing time is 30 minutes. This is not this is not a dish where you can go out and grab a lunch and then come back and do the next step. So you actually have to put a timer on. For hand whisk, you want to go for 30-minute maximum of freezing time. But if you're going for a hand mixer like these ones here, then you can go up to maximum 35 minutes.
Oh, so okay. So it's like just roughly 30 minutes to be safe.
Yeah, so 30 to 35. Because the reason of that 5-minute difference is because using a whisk, you don't have that much energy and you don't have that much power. Then you want the consistency of the chocolate to be slightly softer so that you can incorporate air yourself. But with an electric one, then obviously it do the work. So you can actually have that extra 5 minutes of freezing time. Okay, so we're gonna put this in the freezer right now. So because of the time limitation, and I already made a new, like a pre-made batch that I freeze for 35 minutes, and just slowly pull out the plastic wrap. And yes, it will stick a little bit on the plastic wrap, and that's totally fine. And you can see the texture start to get very sticky. So
do you scoop it back?
No, we just throw it away because it's very sticky and you don't want to add the plastic wrap into your chocolate. So we're gonna throw this away, unfortunately.
I'll eat it, don't worry, it won't be waste.
Okay. So before I proceed with the next set of steps, are there any questions?
Yeah, there is one actually.
Okay.
So is it okay to see bubbles in the mixture?
Yes, it's okay because that's not the final step, as I mentioned. So it's totally fine to see air bubbles on it. We don't have to go through, like when you're baking a cake, you will need to tap out the chocolate, the air, but we don't in this case.
What about seeing bubbles in the mixture before putting it into the freezer?
That's fine as well. Okay. Because as I mentioned, we are going to incorporate air. So then once in the freezer, when it comes out, there are no more air bubbles basically, because we're going to incorporate more air into it. So the bubbles are not a very significant matter in this case.
And then the other question is for people who don't use plastic wrap, can they use beeswax or parchment paper for the freezer?
So I would not recommend using parchment paper because parchment paper are not entirely waterproof. And the moisture would actually make the paper to be wetter, and then the moisture would go into the chocolate. Mm-hmm. So for beeswax, I never actually use it myself, but I understand the concept of this. Mm-hmm. So try to, the beeswax has to directly touching the food. Mm-hmm. To actually make sure that there is no more no more moisture touching the chocolate. So if you just use, because usually a beeswax will just directly covering on mm-hmm. top of the bowl, mm-hmm. then that actually won't stop moisture from going in and touching your ingredient. So if your beeswax is food safe, I guess, to touch directly on, like touching the surface of the chocolate, then yes, you can use beeswax, but no, you cannot use parchment
paper. Okay,
yes,
got it. Another question about why is this color a lot greener than the one that we made? And that's because 30 minutes ago, before we started the workshop, we were testing out the ceremonial matcha batch. So this is actually made out of a different tea powder. So this is ceremonial matcha, which is this one here. So for anyone who have got our tea powder before the workshop, this green is coming from the ceremonial matcha. But the brown texture the brown mixture that we were working on was the hojicha, which again, it's a roasted Japanese green tea. So it's a different type of tea that we used previously. Right. How long can you store Nama chocolates or this particular chocolate recipe?
You can put it in the freezer for 1 week or even more because it's in the freezer, and as long as it's in the airtight container, you can actually keep it as long as you can, like 1 to 2 week maximum, because is just white chocolate, and chocolate can actually store
For quite a long time.
For quite a long time.
And that's after you finish this step.
Yes, exactly. So I'm just going to, before answering more questions, I'm just going to start this step because I cannot wait any longer.
I want to try.
Yes. Okay. So I am not going to use a whisk today because I actually freeze the mixture a little bit longer. And so I'm just going to quickly show you guys the difference between right now and using a hand mixer. Okay. So I just want to show you guys, just give me a second. So I'm just going to put this aside. I'm just going to scoop a little bit out. So this is the green that this is before the mixing, and I'm just going to leave it on the side. And now we're just going to go for a high heat, high speed, and we're just going to mix it. Okay. Okay, so that's completed. You can see that the chocolate, it's slightly stringy. You can actually go for a little bit longer. So I'm just gonna do that a little bit longer. Okay, so if you can see, if you bake cakes, then you would know that this is very similar to stiff peak. Basically, that's exactly what we want. You have to be very cautious in terms of mixing air into the chocolate because it's easily overmixed, especially we're in a high speed. This will take less than 30 seconds. You can see, like I literally do it in front of you. You can see that takes less than 30 seconds. So what I show you here to swing out all the leftover chocolate, and we're good. So I just want to show you the different color after incorporating air. So this is the original color before incorporating air, and this is the new color after incorporating air into the chocolate. Okay. So, I need a new spatula. Hold on. So we're just gonna mix it, making sure all the chocolate it's incorporated, and because there are different color at the very bottom, so we're gonna do a good mix before putting into a piping bag. Okay. Okay, so now it looks like very, very sticky. So please don't use your hand to try to touch it. Even though you're curious what it tastes, just use a spoon, I guess. But it almost like, it's like a marshmallow texture, I would say, like a melted marshmallow texture. So it's very, very sticky and stringy. So we're gonna use a piping bag that we prepared just now. Again, so there are two types. There are the star, and there is also one that I just cut like a round shaped one. So today I'm just going to show you the star. Actually, I can show you guys both because that way you can, for people who doesn't have a piping tip, you can still manage to do it at home.
For people who are using a hand mixer or a whisk,
yep.
How long approximately?
Okay, so I'm sure everyone heard about this 400 times Dangola coffee. This is about 100 times. So make sure you have to get it all, like the color has to change to a lighter color, and it has to hit a stiff peak.
Okay,
exactly. So around 80 to 100 times when you're using a whisk. So that's why if you have a hand mixer, then it will be so much easier, because using a whisk, that will probably take 5 minutes, I would say.
It's just morning arm work.
Yes, exactly. It was just
so
like,
we're gonna be seeing more TikTok about this Airy Nama Chocolate.
Yes, exactly. So I'm just gonna get a tall glass. So how do I do this usually? Here, let me show you a closer look on this. Okay, so I usually would recommend getting a tall glass if you have any type of tall glass at home. And I'm just going to do this. Okay, so I'm just gonna put the tall glass and then the piping bag like this, because I'm not too super professional. So then this one is probably the easiest way for not getting your hand dirty and make sure all your mixture is going into the piping bag. So for this purposes, I'm just gonna do half in here and half into the other piping bag that I have, okay?
Someone asked if you can pipe the chocolate into a chocolate mold.
I would not recommend it, even though you have those silicone chocolate mold, because once you remove it, it's not entirely hard, unlike Nama chocolate. So Airy Nama chocolate has a softer texture. So when you push it out from the silicone mold, it might actually, the shape might not, yeah, the shape might not hold unless you freeze it for a super long time. So I would recommend using a piping bag. Okay, I'm just gonna do that. So what I usually do is just get a spatula and just push in. Okay. Just gonna do a little bit more so that I can show you. Okay.
Just keep in mind that we're not like professional commercial bakers, so a lot of the tips and tools that we're using are mainly for home bakers like yourself.
Yeah, so we're gonna set aside the glass and we're gonna use a plastic scraper or anything, like you can use a cardboard. It works the same way. And we're going to try to push all the chocolate to the bottom. So then you won't have any leftover chocolate. Okay, so Amy, do you want to? Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna push, 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 push. Okay, so now it's ready. Okay, let's prepare the next one as well. Just gonna leave it here. And then again, glass. And then we're gonna put the piping bag in here. Okay, and we're gonna put the leftover.
Someone asked if they can put chocolate into a square container and just cut it into square. Instead of piping.
Yes, you can, but when you're cutting it, you have to be very cautious because there are special way of using a knife when you're cutting chocolate. You want to heat up your knife so then you have very sharp edges. So that would just cause a little bit more technique. The reason I use a piping bag is because it will go into perfect individual pieces. And I would use those like very mini cupcake liner and I will just put it in the box so then it can be separated in multiple pieces. But yes, if you have a little bit more time and more technique, you can definitely spread it on aligned with parchment paper baking pan, and then you can use a hot knife when you're cutting it. Yes. So I'm just gonna quickly, don't want to waste any of this. Ceremonial matcha is expensive. I'm gonna push everything into the piping bag. Okay, so we're gonna leave this. So now it's like this. Okay. And again, I'm gonna do exactly the same thing. Okay, there you go. Okay, so now I prepared a lined baking pan in here. So I'm gonna line this with parchment paper. You can also use silicone mats like these ones here, but parchment paper because I just don't want to wash. So I'm just gonna use a parchment paper. It's easier to move around, and when you want to remove it from the parchment, it's also easier using a spatula, just to scrape it out. Okay, so how do I want to show you this? Okay, let's try to, I'll show you the round first because it's so much easier. You want to, like the reason I want you to push all the air and all the mixture into close to the very, the tip is because you have to do this in one shot. You cannot separate your piping because otherwise when you turn that into a ball later on after freezing, the chocolate pieces that you separated will be also separated. Okay, so very simple. You're just gonna make, like, hold on to your parchment and you're gonna do a big blob. It doesn't matter the shape right now because later on, you're gonna turn that into a ball. Okay, I'm gonna do one more like this. Okay.
A lot of interest on your piping bag. Where do you get that from?
I got them from AliExpress, and you can get them from Taobao as well, but I would not recommend buying piping bag in like local store because they're super expensive. So if you don't have piping bag, it's totally fine. You can use a Ziploc bag would do fine as well. It's more accessible. That is what I use normally when I usually don't have piping bag back in days. So I'm just gonna, but obviously piping bag is so much easier and useful in here because I bake more. That's why I have to start buying piping bag. Okay, just gonna do this.
And while you're doing this, I'm just going to answer a question about tea. So someone asked if there's expiration to matcha powder. So generally speaking, there is no hard expiration date. It's not like if the matcha powder or any tea powder goes bad, it's going to be bad for your health or it's going to, turn bad. More so, it will taste different. The flavor and the color may not be as green, as vibrantly green, and then it may taste a little bit more stale. So in general rule of thumb is that any tea powder, it's good for a year from production. It's like best before within a year, basically. But then it largely depends on how you store your tea powder. The best way to store any of the tea powder, it's in a cool, dry, airtight environment. So make sure your container is not like glass or transparent or even like translucent. It has to be solid color and as airtight as possible, and just keep that container in a cool, dry environment. For a really good grade matcha, like ceremonial grade, or like, even within ceremonial grade, there are different levels. The more expensive your matcha, the better you store it in a fridge. So hope that answered your question.
So for the round ones, for the perfect shape, I found that you don't want your chocolate piece to be too big or too small. It'll be around like a quarter. So the diameter of this round thing, it's around like a size of a quarter. Yes. So this is not the final product. So don't worry if yours doesn't look as great or not as round, because later on, you're going to use your hand and roll them into round shape. So using a piping tip is so much easier because you don't have to roll them at the end. You just have to dust a thin layer of matcha powder or gemaja powder or hojicha powder later on. So I'm just gonna do the piping. A star tip piping is so easy. All you have to do is just to press and then it will automatically shape. I don't have to do anything. Okay. I'm not sure if you can see this properly. How do I show you? Do you want to move my phone and then you can show on here? No, just remove it from the, yeah. Okay, here, let me show. Let me put it here. And then you can show it on here. Be easier. Okay, so it'll be like this. Okay. So it will be perfectly, I don't have to do anything. You just press and just let it flow and it will be perfectly into this perfect shape. Okay. So half a batch because of the chocolate size. Oh, sorry, this one is slightly tilted because I kind of like move slightly tilted.
It's okay, it's home cafe.
Yes. So for half a batch of chocolate, you can only make around 3 to 4 pieces of this shape, but you can make around 6 pieces of the round shape. Okay, for half a batch. So you can kind of estimate how many pieces. Okay.
Okay, we're just gonna put the camera back
Here.
top down.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we are going to put sorry, We're going to put this in the freezer for at least 1 hour, or better, even better, is overnight, because you want to make sure that all the chocolate are in good shape before you dust the matcha powder on and give it to somebody, or roll them like into a good shape, so then it won't be sticky when you're touching this before you're rolling them into a ball. Okay, so I'm gonna put in the freezer now.
I hope everyone is following along fine so far.
Michelle, I have 2 questions here about tea. It would be great you can answer them right now.
Sure. Let's see. Is it good to store tea in the freezer? Actually, fridge is better than freezer, just because if you store your tea in freezer, after you take it out from the freezer, because of the drastic temperature difference, it will start getting like condensation and moisture, which is not good for tea. So remember, a good environment for tea, it's cool and dry, right? So it's good that it's cold in the freezer, but it's not good after you take it out from the freezer in a room temperature and start using it, start getting condensation. So good high quality tea, you do want to keep it in a fridge, and that applies to specifically green tea, not so much for black tea or like pu'er tea. Don't put like black tea, pu'er tea in a fridge. Just the green tea, like a great matcha or like a really good grade Chinese dragon well type of tea. What are the different levels of ceremonial matcha? So to be honest, in Japan, different tea factory have their own metrics. There's no universal, I guess, like grading system when it comes to matcha or tea in general. So you'll see like different names and different terminologies when it comes to grading matcha. So in like a really general scheme, there are just 2 different kind of like globally recognized grades. It's like the culinary grade or the ceremonial grade. So the culinary grade, it's typically the grade that people use to make food, like matcha infused dessert or pastry. Or, you know, some cafes would use culinary grade to make your matcha latte as well. And they will probably put some sugar to kind of mask the bitterness or astringency of that grade of matcha. Ceremonial grade, typically it's like a lot less bitter, or even like not bitter at all. And it's better for drinking. So to properly answer the question about what are the different grades within ceremonial grade, it's, to be honest, no proper answer. And it all comes down to your personal preference. Sometimes a higher grade doesn't mean it has the taste and profiles or notes that you prefer anyway. So just be open-minded and try different things. So I think we can go back to chocolate now.
Yes. So I actually, after freezing for 1 hour or 2 hours, actually these are freezed overnight. These are some of the finished product. It might not look as nice right now because it's in a very ugly container box, but you can actually put into a nice Valentine's Day box, gift box and stuff. So these ones are round, and they are the hojicha one. It's dusted with half and half of cocoa powder and hojicha powder. You can also use fully hojicha powder, but because the hojicha powder is in a light brown color, so I feel like it's better to be shaped in more like a color, like a chocolate colored truffle. So then I put half cocoa, so like 1 teaspoon of cocoa and 1 teaspoon of hojicha powder. So these are the ones that's round shape. And these ones here are the matcha and the genmaicha here. I'm not sure if you can see this, but then someone asked a question, is that, do you have to dust the identical flavor of powder onto the chocolate? The answer is no. You can be creative. You can do the matcha, you can add some matcha powder, so then it has a more different color to it. You can see that the color is slightly different in here. So I just want to show you guys. Not sure if you can see this. It's like light green plus a layer of green. You can also dust cocoa powder if you guys don't want to waste additional tea powder. You want to keep the tea powder for lattes or anything. The cocoa powder would not necessarily affect the flavor of the chocolate itself because it would just add a little bit of bitterness to it. So then it becomes having more flavor profile. And this is basically the 3-ingredient, 15-minute preparation chocolate. Majority of the time is freezing time. So I would definitely recommend don't push it to the last minute, but at least like one day beforehand, like after this workshop, if you're planning to make anything for your friends or yourself or your partner, etc. Okay.
The plate.
Oh, or you can just put it in a plate like this. I'm just gonna show you guys. I really like the round shape because it's easier to move around compared to the other shape. Okay. So we can just do this. Okay. The plate is slightly bigger, but you can go forward and find a smaller plate if you want. And for these here, it's harder to move around because of its shape. So you want to use a spatula, a metal spatula, and just kind of scoop it and kind of help you with it. And then you can just move it around. Just put this here. Okay.
I like how this recipe is supposed to be for Valentine's Day, but like looking at the shape of this piping tip one, you can actually use it for Christmas. Doesn't it look like a Christmas tree anyway?
It does look like a Christmas tree.
So it's like a for season, any festival type of recipe.
Yeah, exactly. So it can be like this. So now it's ready and you can like, I don't know if there's anybody you want to give at home, then you can serve it in a plate, you can serve it in a box. Yeah.
That's everything, I think. We're just going to quickly see if there's any critical questions that we need to answer.
Thank you so much, Regina and Michelle. It looks so pretty, and I really want to try one of them there.
You should make yourself one.
I should definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so someone want to ask, when is the step to shape the ball?
Okay, so after you freeze overnight or even with
like a few hours,
you can start shaping the ball. I can quickly show you
someone
like
wants to be shown.
The procedure. I just don't have the dough or the chocolate with me because it's still freezing. So what you usually do is that okay, let me just prepare on the side. Hold on. So in a flatter bowl, you don't want like a big bowl. You want a flat surface one. You're gonna put some hojicha powder.
Let's just say
not this one, hojicha powder. It doesn't matter how many because it depends on how many chocolate you have. So you can just put an estimate amount. Usually just do maybe 1 teaspoon. Okay, and then 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder. You don't have to sift this because this is so easy. So just 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder. I'm just gonna eyeball it. Kind of do a mix, making sure that all the powder is incorporated with hojicha and chocolate. Okay, pretend this is the ball that I just piped. Remove it from the parchment paper, maybe with an aid with the spatula, but usually it remove it automatically. Like it's very easily to be removed. So all you have to do is to dust a little bit onto the powder and kind of just like mix it. And then you can use these gloves, these disposable gloves, or if you want, you can wash your hand very thoroughly and use your hand. I'm just gonna use my hand right now. And then just do this very, very lightly and just kind of like roll it into a ball. And then afterwards, dust a full layer of the powder so that it coat properly to the chocolate. And then you can just use your hand and just kind of like do this. So then all the powder with all the residue, extra powder will come off. And then now you can, this is a perfect ball.
Okay. Someone want to see how hard the ball should be. So can you cut into one of those and just show the interior?
Yep, I can do that. Should I do this? Okay, so the ball is actually really soft. I will not say soft, but it's hard, hard enough. You can see there is some like surface, like you can actually touch and there will be dent. Yeah, exactly. A little dent into the chocolate. But I'm just gonna cut one out. So there are you need some force to cut one out, and it will be like this. Okay, can you see this properly? Is it very dark?
How long does it stay in room temperature?
Room temperature wise, I would say 10 to 15 minutes before it will start to deform, especially if you are going for these shape. But for the ball shape, it's not as easily deformed because it's now in a ball. So then that can probably go up to 15 to 20. But I would say best to put in the freezer. Like you give it to somebody and ask them to put them in the freezer right away.
Okay, so not fridge, right? Just keep in freezer.
Yes, not fridge, because fridge, the moisture would damage the chocolate. Water and chocolate is enemy, so you're gonna put it in an airtight or just like a container with a lid and put it in the freezer.
Okay, and it doesn't matter what size they make into, right? If they want to make it smaller, they can use this pipe smaller.
So the reason I made into this shape is just because you can eat it within one bite, and the texture you can see it's almost like a cookie dough. When you cut it open, it's like a cookie dough texture. Can you guys see this properly? Hopefully. And yeah, so this is when you cut open the other one, it's gonna be the same, but it's just more fragile because that's why I pipe these into one bite shape. And then so that person who you give can just pop one in right away.
Can you mold it in flat shapes?
So I answered another similar question just now, and you can put into like a parchment paper lined with a baking pan. But what it needs is a little bit more technique because you will treat it like a Nama chocolate, but in a softer texture. Mm-hmm. So that's why when we use a piping tip, it's already originally in a very individual shape. But whereas when you put into the pot, like the baking sheet and flatten it into rectangular or square shape, when you cut it through the chocolate, you might want to use those like threads or like those no flavor dental floss to cut it open, or you can heat up one of your knife, like these knife, and then just cut it properly. But that will require a little bit more technique. That's why I didn't want to show it here, because in case if you're amateur and you still want to make the chocolate, you want to use, I think this technique is probably easier than putting into a pan and shape into perfect rectangular shape.
Okay. Just a few questions about tea. Again, is it good to store tea in freezer? Like I say, not a good idea. Keep it in the fridge for good quality tea. And so if someone asks if they should store the ceremonial matcha in the fridge after it's opened, I would say it's quite optional. I mean, it's a good idea to do so, especially if you're not using your matcha too often. If you're having it like every day, you're going through the bag like within 2 weeks or within a month, you probably don't have to. Also, considering how cold it is right now, it's not like a must. It's not gonna like drastically affect the quality of your ceremonial matcha if you don't put it in the fridge. If you're already storing your matcha in a cool, dry, airtight environment, it's like it's good enough. But if you want to like step it up and keep it for a longer time, and you don't use matcha as often as other people, then yes, store it in the fridge, not freezer, fridge. Okay.
Are there
any other critical question that you saw, Amy, that we should answer now?
Oh, I think it's all good. And thank you so much for staying a little bit longer with us. And for sure, I will send you the Q&A questions and participants' email if they actually allow us to see their email. Then you can answer them after this workshop. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, everyone. Have a happy
go. I just want to let you know that Paragon Tea Room also offered us this exclusive coupon to get 10% off on the tea set that we demonstrated today, and also on the discount can be applied to individual tea bags.
Yeah, the tea powders. There are a lot, and you can use any of the tea powder in this recipe today as well. Yes.
And then so
latte.
you will get a link for the survey, and you will have the link for the YouTube video and also the coupon, of course, and the recipe. So that's just everything from us. And then thank you so much for
Thank you. Have a good weekend, guys.
everyone here. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.